and welcome to Chicanime. My name is Lauren, and today I am looking at some solo level and cut content. I'm going to the very end of the season, of the series so far, with the cut content from the very last episode. So I had a couple of theories that I was kind of ruminating on about certain potential events. I was like, is the system, and well, I mean, feel like the system is definitely an extra dimensional entity, but it seems like maybe there's a second one, and there's maybe some kind of fight that's potentially brewing between the two of them as they get these avatars to potentially fight it out here. But I'm not entirely sure. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of questions that I have. There was some weird people that showed up in the Jeju Island ant nest talking about these entities, and they were all able to like just dimension door in and out, and Jinwoo's dad was there. There was so much like crazy stuff happening in that moment. So I'm watching it. I want to look into this and see specifically if they do explain a little bit more of that in the manga or the manhwa, and if not, then I'll continue to theorize. I also will probably go back and watch a couple of the older ones of the cut content videos, just talking about how he grew in his power and like maybe like trying to see if there'll be more explanation of some of these other people. But for now, I really wanted to just kind of cut to the end and see what there is to see there. So, let's begin.
So, here we are on the last episode of cut content for Season 2, and what we have is quite a lot. Even if you set aside the scenes with America, which will no doubt be in Season 3, the full aftermath of the Jeju Island raid was pretty extensive. From Sung being treated like Superman to an emotional meeting with Min's mom, the whole arc is brought to a close rather nicely. So, if you want to know Korea's full reaction to what's essentially Sung's debut, then stick around because it's actually pretty interesting.
Okay.
Since this is the last episode though, I just want to say thanks again for all the support this season, and if you do plan on sticking around, there'll be plenty of content for ReZero, Danmachi, and Overlord next. If that's not your cup of tea though, then I guess I'll see you again.
I am still watching the Overlord Annie News like videos as well. I'm not giving up on that, don't worry.
Comes around. But anyway, let's start things off the moment Sung finished up his business at Jeju Island. This is where the novel gives us a whole lot more, since he would fly Kaisel back to Korea, then land his dragon right on the doorsteps of the Hunter Association.
Dang!
It was a spectacle that brought many of the Monitoring Division hunters outside ready for a fight.
Here's my baby!
It was when they saw it belonged to Sung, though, that's when they would greet him as they would any other S-rank hunter. So, Sung would request to meet Chairman Go, which for any other person would have been denied instantly.
Ah.
Like, even the most prominent ministers of government had to wait at least a week before they could talk to him.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating, especially considering the number of times that Chairman Go has, like, sought this man out and, like, called him personally on the phone. Like, that's crazy. I didn't realize how important Chairman Go was, I guess.
However, was Sung Jinu, and based on what he had just accomplished, it was more than likely the chairman was dying to talk to him.
I wonder if Sung really understands just how crazy that is. Because, I mean, it's not like he's an idiot, but he's also, like, he was an E-rank hunter, so he might just think that that is something that all S-rank hunters kind of get a privilege for, you know?
One of the association hunters would call the chairman just to confirm, then proceed to inform Sung that he was at the hospital monitoring the situation with Cha. So, if we switch over to what was happening there, the doctor we saw alongside Chairman Go before was now checking up on Cha to make sure she was okay.
Cool.
As bad as things looked on TV, he was shocked to see she had recovered perfectly. Where
Good
before
job,
she had a poor
Benno, or
complexion
whatever your
due to
name is.
crazy hemorrhaging, now she seemed just fine. It was a stark contrast to what he was expecting. Now, while the chairman did know how it was Cha turned out this way, that was information he decided to withhold.
Oh, okay.
Reason being
Probably
that
wise.
Sung's power wasn't something he would willingly spread like that. No. Instead, he decided to say it was the work of the two A-rank healers he had at the helipad. That being the case, so far everyone that knew about the true nature of Sung's abilities also knew to keep it a secret.
That's nice.
It was then that the doctor
Well,
would bring up Sung for a different
I
reason.
don't know if it's nice or if it's self-preservation. It could be a mixture of both. Like, if someone that powerful tells you to keep things on the DL, I feel like you do that. You just do.
Revealing how his mother was a patient at their hospital. This much the chairman knew already, so he immediately thought the doctor was gonna say she finally succumbed to her eternal sleep disease. What he said instead, though, was the exact opposite. He would explain to the chairman that Sung's mother actually woke up from it. The chairman's doctor wasn't in the know at first, but when the raid happened and Sung appeared on screen, a lot of the higher-ups who did started bringing it up again.
Yeah, because they would have known
The chairman
him.
would then hear about it from him, and that's when he would start piecing together an answer to the question that was plaguing him earlier. You see, it was once he heard this awakening happened only 5 days ago that now the chairman
Oh, I didn't
finally
realize it was that
understood why
quick.
Sung refused to participate in the raid. Back when he was watching, he couldn't quite piece it together, but knowing this and the fact his
Yeah.
dad went missing in a gate almost a decade ago,
Yeah.
it made sense why Sung wouldn't want to leave his mother to participate in the most dangerous raid Korea's faced ever. It was two massive reasons the chairman couldn't help but feel careless for not recognizing sooner. In
Well,
fact,
how could he
it
possibly have
actually
known?
made him appreciate what Sung did for them even more now. He had shown once again just how rare of a person he was. It was then that an association employee would inform the chairman about Min's mother, specifically how they couldn't get into contact with her. It was an expected response considering how she'd learned of her son's death
Yeah.
through the TV.
Oof.
Not only that, but she had also called the association herself to confirm whether it was true or not. So, Min's mother was already well aware of her son's tragic fate, and she was now prepping for a funeral that wouldn't even have his body.
Oh, that's so sad.
If you remember from what I said last video, I know the anime shows the S-ranks extracting
I
with it,
wasn't
but
there.
in the novel they couldn't since it was too dangerous. Min's body was still at the island lost in the ant tunnels. It's for this reason the chairman decided to go see her in person, but not before meeting with Sung first. Normally Min's mom would have been the priority, but when a person like Sung says he's trying to get in contact, the chairman knew he better make the arrangements.
I also do like that the family of the deceased hunters are considered priority. That's really nice. And again, like I've had some issues in other animes with like, obviously the government, and it seems like the Japanese government in this anime is the quintessential anime government. I like that this one's a little different. They're all, because it's always the same. The government's always just like kind of cruel and callous, and people are cogs in a machine, and they're all just trying to gain power, and it's all very true to life, and I like this government. It's the only one I've ever seen in like an anime like this where the government actually seems to care, and and that's why it doesn't feel as propaganda-y as like it could, because it's like the only one. I've like never seen this happen before. So that's the only reason it doesn't feel like egregiously propaganda-y. Because it just doesn't happen very often. So I like it when it does. It's a breath of fresh air.
Now, for Sung, who was waiting for the chairman's arrival, he was being treated far differently from the last time he was here. Where before the employees didn't really know him, now
Well,
they
they
were
could've
treating
known
him
him
like
a little
royalty.
bit.
Even the chairman himself
there
expressed
all the
more
time.
consideration than usual because at the moment Sung was the person who deserved respect the most. So, first the chairman would inform Sung he knew what happened in the tunnel, followed by a statement saying he knew how he got there too. Only the former point was accurate though, since
Yeah,
the
I was
latter
like-
Chairman Go assumed it was explained via Kaisel.
Okay, that makes sense.
After seeing Sung arrive on the back of Kaisel here, the chairman just assumed that's how he got to Jeju there.
You know what? That's a...
Sung saw no need to reveal
Yeah,
yet another
absolutely.
part of his
Don't
ability,
change
so
that.
rather than correct the chairman for being
Yup,
mistaken,
Dragon
he
Rider.
simply nodded his head since that to him would make flying around on Kaisel a whole lot easier. Now the people would know the dragon flying in the sky belonged to him. As for why Sung wanted
Now
to
we can
talk
just
to the
fly it
chairman
around. That's
himself,
great.
well, that was to simply inform him that every ant on the island was dead now. He was essentially giving the chairman the green light to proceed with whatever operations came next. This was news the chairman was only shocked by for a little bit, since when he remembered how Sung had hundreds of summons to fight for him,
Yeah.
the thought of clearing the island didn't seem so impossible anymore. He figured them combing the island would result in its extermination a lot faster than anticipated. So, this is how the chairman knew he could send a team in, and that's how he managed to retrieve Min's body for the funeral.
Oh, okay,
Before,
cool.
the loss of Min's body was a tragedy that weighed heavily on him, but now that he knew Min's body was salvageable, words couldn't describe how grateful he was. This brings us now to what I would have considered an iconic scene, since it really hammers home the impact Sung had on the country. You see, it was after the meeting that the chairman would offer Sung a ride home with one of the association cars. To Sung, this was just another typical display of gratitude, but
Yeah.
what the chairman intended for it was something far greater.
Connecting the two of
he
them
was well
together.
aware Sung could easily fly home on Kaisel or even run there faster, but in the process that would ignore one of the most important aspects of being a top-ranked hunter. It would ignore the people who've come to adore him.
Privileges.
What people might I be talking about?
Everybody?
Well, before Sung had arrived, barely anyone was at the association, but in the time it took for them to finish their conversation, a huge crowd had gathered, leaving no openings at all. Every single person had come solely for him.
Aww.
It wasn't just reporters or members of the press either, but also regular people too, all wanting to glimpse the person who saved their country.
I feel like it would give the same vibe of, you know, that picture of like Chris Evans desperately like squeezing past a bunch of people like pressed up against a car. Like, it's like, this is why you have security, dude. Like, that's kind of what it feels like. Do you know what I'm talking about? I can't find it, but I know it exists, the picture.
There was one single headline which suggested the shadowy dragon at the association was Sung's, and that was all it took for the news of his location to spread like wildfire. It was enough of a rumor to bring droves of people wanting to see whether what the article supposed was true or not.
Can I see a dragon?
When Sung saw just how many people were there for him, that all sorts of emotions welled up inside him.
I bet.
It was the first time he'd experienced anything like this. And though Sung didn't fully understand it at the moment, the chairman helped him by explaining how this was what their country was looking for. You see, as the only country on Earth to lose part of their land to monsters, what Korea needed now more than ever was a victory. For 2 years, their people had been enduring endless humiliation from across the globe. Combine that with the fact Jeju Island wasn't raidable without the help of others, and what you get is a population filled with doubt in their own country's capabilities. Now, they weren't necessarily wrong for thinking that, but that perception did a complete 180 when Sung showed up. With the mighty Japanese retreating and their own hunters on the brink of losing, Sung swooped in to dissuade the country's feelings of powerlessness. He alone poured courage back into those who were watching.
Good for him.
So, in a way,
nice
he was
to
exactly
see, like,
what
this
the country was looking for when they needed it. He was a hero that those lucky enough to witness on TV now wanted to see in person. So, though Chairman Go knew Sung could easily get home just by flying, he advised against it since he knew better than anyone the people needed to see their hero. It was advice that would lead to a scene very reminiscent from this one in Batman vs. Superman. Sung would exit the building to a crowd in awe, and not a single person would proceed to say anything. They would simply stare in silence, taking in the hero in front of them. Wu and the other agents would then clear a path for Sung, all with the exception of one single old man.
Grandpa?
It was the grandpa you may recognize from this scene here. An old man wanting to bear witness to their son's avenger.
I'm so glad that I watched that episode.
Here he was right in front of Sung, tears streaming down his face as he expressed gratitude. He was thanking Sung for finally granting his son a proper rest. Sung would respond by saying it was simply what had to be done, then proceed to the car where the crowd would follow. It was while leaving that everywhere he looked, people's heads would lower out of respect for him.
Wow.
They were greetings he knew were filled with genuine appreciation. It was by the time Sung could see the crowd no longer that's when he'd realized how fast his heart was beating.
Yeah, guy, like
he was finally coming to terms with what exactly he accomplished.
Yeah.
So, where before he was reluctant to parade himself in public like that, now he was kinda glad he did. To him, every gaze was a proper reward for a job well done. It was once reality came crashing back down that Sung would remember the state he left his mom in.
He's like, oh, fuck,
As
mom,
it turns out,
gotta go.
He had actually just straight up broke their TV here. It was also his mom wouldn't find out he was a hunter yet.
He did that?
Checking his phone would reveal 13 missed calls from home, followed by a crazy amount of discourse about him online.
How did he break up?
Essentially his public debut now complete, people were expressing their thoughts on it endlessly. They were discussions exactly like the ones you'd expect to find in the weekly episode reviews on Reddit. One such topic was one you'd see in almost every post, since it was a debate that begged the ultimate question of how strong he was. Some suggested as strong as the national level, while others called them crazy for even thinking that. Naturally, there was criticism as well, since just like in the anime, many blamed him for the death of Min. For a while, no reason was given as to why Sung showed up late, but eventually the association did post an article about it. They simply mentioned how Sung was kept behind due to inexperience. As a hunter who was only a couple weeks ago the E rank, it made sense to call Sung a reserve member intended only for emergencies. This
Okay, good.
obviously wasn't
I'm really glad they didn't like tell anything about his mom or anything like that. It's like, let's just get some of the public spotlight off of him. We don't need people diving that deep into his private life. I love that.
the truth, but it was enough to at least convince the public. It was the best the chairman could do to ease
I don't
the
know if
criticism
we're gonna get
pointed
to talk about the mysterious people, though.
towards Sung. It also kept his true reasons away from the spotlight. This, however, turned all that criticism towards the association, since it perpetuated the idea
Okay.
that had they gauged Sung's abilities
But they
properly
can
to begin with, then
kind of
perhaps
hold
Min would
that,
be
though.
alive right now. So
Everyone's
all the-
always gonna blame somebody for a death like that. They need someone to blame, and like for some reason they can't just blame the ants. The ants are dead. Yeah, and I that's a human thing, like needing that blame to be ascribed to someone who can do something about it potentially. It makes sense, but I feel like the association as a entity can also handle that amount of disgruntlement and blame better than a private citizen can.
blame was shifted towards them. Yes, it may be at the expense of the association, but at least now Sung was well on his way to becoming the most famous hunter in the country. No longer were people blaming him for slacking off, and now they were instead focusing on his accomplishment. Fast forward now to Min's funeral, and while initially intended to be this small private ceremony, it ended up being public due to
Poor
the sheer
guy.
number of people that wanted to pay their respects to him.
Yeah.
Countless people showed up to honor his sacrifice. Excitement grew when Sung showed up himself, but that wasn't something Sung thought to be very respectful. Normally, he wouldn't care that people were looking or talking about him, but now was neither the time nor
Yeah,
place
this
for
is
it.
about Min.
So, in order to bring things back to the solemn way it was, Sung would unleash the most minuscule portion of magical energy he could. It was an amount so tiny you couldn't even consider it a portion, but it was still more than enough to bring that mood back. Anyone
Okay.
yapping was now silent again. It was then that Min's mother would approach Sung herself, not to scold him like how everyone thought, but rather to thank him in person for what he did for her. You see, as the one who personally invited him to be here, she wanted to
Wow.
express her gratitude in person. Reason being that it was all because of Sung that Min's body could return back home to her.
Oh,
Had Sung not cleared the island as fast as he did, then there was a chance Min's body may have never been recovered. So, though Sung's reasons for killing the ants may not have been entirely that, ensuring Min
They
could
weren't.
make it home was at
But
least part of it.
that's so.
He didn't like
sweet.
the idea of his corpse rotting away forgotten in the darkness of the ant tunnels.
Okay, good.
This was a service Min's mother would be eternally grateful for, since with his help she was able to see her son one last time. Now,
Well,
it was by the time she was done saying what she wanted to say that now she would be shedding tears all over again.
yeah, I'm like about to
It
cry
was an
too.
emotional
Like-
sight that would remind Sung of his own mom. He would envision her face overlapping with Min's mom's, leading to a lump in his throat that would choke him up a bit. The expressions and emotions she was displaying now were far too similar to the ones his own mom had when their dad went missing.
Ugh. See, like the thing is, I feel like the anime, what it missed out on a lot of is any and all like real, true emotions that Jinwoo was actually feeling. Like we see a little bit of it when his mom comes back, and like that episode made me cry. But like he's almost always so buttoned up and like cold almost. So something that it seems like the manhwa does is that it really does like explore some of those actual emotions that he's feeling even now. So it's like instead of, because I kind of thought that he's sort of getting them walled off a little bit, his emotions, like after he agreed to be the player. So it seems like maybe it's less that, and it's just sort of the anime did that.
But just like how his dad sacrificed his life to save numerous people, so did Min to save his fellow hunters. So while his fate was definitely tragic, it was helpful to know Min's sacrifice wasn't in vain. Now, if you're wondering what the final numbers for the raid were, there were 4,801 hunters called to arms, along with 727 awakened civilians who volunteered alongside them.
Wow.
64 of them ended up dying, while 32 civilians were lost in the aftermath. So, while this was certainly a pretty high number, it was actually the least amount of casualties out of all the raids.
Wow.
Let's wrap things up with Sung finally back at home, where we find out the discussion with his mom went well. Though news of him being a hunter was certainly shocking, she didn't object to it as that was what Sung expressed as being the profession he wanted to keep pursuing.
Also, he's
Yes,
an S
she
rank.
was worried given what happened to their dad, but so long as Sung didn't push himself too hard, then she was okay with it.
Okay.
That being the case, in the
Good
end
for
his
her.
goal would be the same it always was: survival. So, given the biggest obstacle of permission was clear, nothing was stopping Sung from establishing his own guild now. He could finally monopolize high-rank dungeons and level up without worry. It was then that he'd remember the mystery item unveiled at level 100,
Oh.
which, if you blinked, then you probably missed it.
Yep,
in the
I
anime.
fully missed that.
I won't say any more than that, but I thought it cool that they decided to hint at it here.
I fully
I'm sure
missed
you'll
that.
recognize this as a core component for the plot of Season 3.
Okay.
But yeah, that's
Okay,
pretty much it
so-
for the season.
Dang it.
I hope you enjoyed this series of cut content, and I hope to see you soon in some of my next videos. If you want to subscribe, then that'd be great too, since we're getting close to 700,000 now. Oh, and if you want to come hang out in the community Discord, I've been told that we're looking for new members. So the link to that will be down in the description. But anyway, until next time, ciao!
Okay, so I did. Maybe they're in the other. Maybe they're in the episode before that. Those guys, like that, we didn't talk about them at all. So maybe they were in the episode. Sorry. They might have been in the previous episode. I might have just missed that, or forgotten. So looks like I'll be watching another one of these at some point in the near future, because I do want to see if I can't find out more about those two guys and like more about the bigger world that's being created and the more of the secrets that are being revealed, I hope. But again, maybe some of that I gotta wait for season 3. Or maybe some of it isn't even revealed in the manhwa yet. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will be watching the previous episode next time just so that I can maybe get those answers. See you there.